You know how you always say I'm fine a little too quickly? Not because you plan to lie. The answer just comes out automatically now. And sometimes people can tell there's clearly something wrong, but the second the conversation gets emotionally close, you suddenly change the subject, make a joke, or act like it's not a big deal. Not because you don't feel anything. Honestly, you probably feel too much. That's the problem. You just can't seem to turn what's happening inside your head into words fast enough for other people to understand. So instead, you stay quiet, or you explain the situation instead of the emotion, or you disappear for a while, process everything alone, then come back pretending nothing happened. And people misunderstand you constantly. They think you're distant, hard to read, emotionally unavailable. Meanwhile, your mind is carrying entire conversations nobody hears. Psychology says this happens for a reason. You don't struggle to feel emotions. You struggle to express them safely. That's different. And once you understand that, your whole life starts making more sense. Think about what happens when you grow up feeling like your emotions are inconvenient. You cried and someone called you dramatic. You got upset and somebody told you to calm down instead of asking what hurt you. You opened up once and later regretted it because it got dismissed, ignored, or used against you. After enough experiences like that, your brain quietly learns something. Feel first, hide second. Eventually, emotional expression stops feeling natural. It starts feeling dangerous. So you adapt. You become careful, measured, internal. You learn how to keep everything inside without letting it spill onto other people. And after years of doing that, you get so good at containing emotion that even you sometimes lose access to what you're actually feeling in the moment. That's why people asking, "What's wrong?" can feel weirdly overwhelming. Not because nothing's wrong, because too many things are happening at once, and you don't know where to begin. You've probably had moments where you spent hours replaying a conversation afterward, thinking of everything you should have said, the perfect explanation, the perfect response, the perfect vulnerable sentence. 2 days too late. In your head, you know exactly how you feel. But in real time, your mind freezes because expressing emotions privately and expressing them out loud to another human being are completely different experiences. One feels controlled, the other feels exposed, and exposure makes your nervous system panic a little. That's why texting is easier for you sometimes. Text gives you time. You can rewrite the sentence, delete it, think about how it sounds before anyone sees it. Face-to-face vulnerability doesn't work like that. Your voice shakes in real time. Your face reacts in real time. You can't edit yourself fast enough. So instead, you say, "I'm just tired." Even when the feeling goes much deeper than tiredness, there's actually a psychological pattern connected to. Some people experience emotions more physically than verbally, which means your feelings often show up in indirect ways. Stress becomes exhaustion. Sadness becomes numbness. Anxiety becomes overthinking. Love becomes helping people instead of saying how much they matter to you. You express emotion through actions long before you express it through words. That's why you'll spend hours being there for other people, but the second someone asks how you're doing, your brain suddenly goes blank. Or you laugh nervously, or you say, "I don't know." And honestly, sometimes you genuinely don't know. Not because you lack emotions, because you were never really taught how to sit with them long enough to name them. You learned how to suppress them, minimize them, push through them, function around them, but expressing them, that's different. And here's the strange contradiction you live with. You want people to understand you deeply, but being fully seen also terrifies you. So you stay halfway hidden, close enough for connection, far enough for safety. Which becomes exhausting after a while, because there's a difference between being around people and feeling emotionally known by them. You probably know exactly what that feels like, having conversations all day long while still feeling strangely unseen. Not because nobody cares, because nobody can hear the parts of you that never make it out loud. And honestly, one of the hardest things about being like this is that people often assume silence means you don't care. Meanwhile, you care so much it overwhelms you. You notice tiny changes in people immediately. A shift in tone, a shorter text, a different energy. You replay little moments other people forget instantly. You think deeply about how your words affect people. You carry conversations in your head long after they end, but none of that becomes visible externally. So people assume you're detached when the reality is almost the opposite. You feel everything intensely. You just experience emotion internally first, sometimes for way too long. That's why conflict is hard for you too. Not because you never have feelings, because your brain tries to process every angle simultaneously. You think about what you feel, what they feel, what the consequences could be, how the conversation might go wrong, what you should say, what you shouldn't say, and by the time your mind finishes processing all of it, the moment has already passed. So later that night, you think of exactly what you wish you said. Again. And maybe the saddest part is this. A lot of the time, you genuinely believe your feelings are too much for other people, too complicated, too inconvenient. So before anyone even gets the chance to dismiss you, you dismiss yourself first. You downplay what hurt you. You convince yourself it's not important enough to bring up. You tell yourself you're overreacting. And eventually, you become the person everybody describes as low maintenance. Not because you don't need support, because you stopped expecting it. That kind of emotional self-containment changes you slowly. You become hyper-independent emotionally. You process pain privately. You calm yourself down privately. You heal privately. And after years of that, vulnerability starts feeling unnatural, even when you desperately want connection, especially then. But here's the interesting part. When you finally feel emotionally safe with someone, really safe, something changes completely. You become incredibly deep. Not immediately, not loudly, but slowly. People start realizing how much you actually notice, how carefully you think, how intensely you care. You remember tiny details about people months later. You show love through consistency, through presence, through small things nobody else notices. Because emotional depth was never your problem. Translation was. Safety was. And once your nervous system stops feeling threatened, expression becomes easier. Still uncomfortable sometimes, still messy sometimes, but possible. That's important because you've probably judged yourself harshly for this before. You've probably wondered if you're emotionally unavailable, bad at communication, broken somehow. But struggling to express emotions is often adaptation, not deficiency. Your brain learned strategies that protected you emotionally at some point in your life. The problem is, those same strategies can create distance later, especially in relationships where closeness requires honesty. And maybe that's the deeper psychology here. You're not emotionless. You're emotionally overloaded in silence. There's an entire inner world happening underneath the version of you people see every day. A world full of thoughts, attachment, fear, care, memories, overthinking, and feelings you still don't know how to put into words. And maybe the reason this video feels personal is because you've spent years trying to explain something you never had the language for. If you enjoy understanding human behavior, subscribe. And honestly, what's one feeling you've had for a long time, but still don't know how to explain